The United States launches an F-35 stealth jet, $80 million of cutting-edge technology, and it doesn't work. What happens when your warplanes can't fly and your submarines go silent? Not because of a design flaw, but because China cut off a single element hidden inside its paint. And what happens when your allies can't smuggle you the fix? In May 2025, Beijing didn't just ban exports. It dismantled the smuggling network that kept America's military running. Rare earths rerouted through South Korea disguised as cosmetics, traced, exposed, blocked. And now the Pentagon says weapon systems could shut down in 90 days, not years, days. What just happened isn't a trade war. It's a quiet kill switch, and the United States just heard it click. On May 9th, 2025, China didn't just shut down smugglers. It launched an all-agency crackdown designed to erase the last escape hatch in America's rare earth dependency. The Ministry of Commerce, Customs, and State Security jointly initiated Operation Thunder, targeting disguised exports routed through third countries like South Korea and the United Kingdom. According to Bloomberg, China controls 70% of global rare earth production and over 90% of refining capacity, with 44 million tons in reserves, nearly half the global total. This isn't a new Cold War. It's an invisible blockade. And in April, after President Trump's 34% retaliatory tariffs on Chinese goods, Beijing's answer was immediate export controls on 7 critical rare earth categories used in U.S. weapon systems. As reported by the Wall Street Journal, this included elements vital for missile guidance, stealth coatings, and submarine sonar arrays. In the rhetoric of national security and trade balancing, a material cutoff just triggered the Pentagon's worst-case scenario. So the question isn't whether China targeted rare earths. The question is, did they just pull the pin on America's most vulnerable supply chain? For years, the United States publicly claimed it was diversifying rare earth sources. But customs data tells a different story. Between January and April 2024, China exported $18,000 metric tons of rare earths, nearly matching the annual exports of every other country combined. By December, 97% of rare earth imports to the United States still came from China, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. To bypass tightening restrictions, American buyers increasingly relied on re-exports routed through allies. South Korea's case is revealing imports of Chinese rare earths surged 137% year over year in Q1 2025. Yet its domestic tech growth clocked under 5%, based on data from the Korea Institute for Industrial Economics. Meanwhile, South Korea's defense exports to the United States spiked 213% in the same period. The numbers don't hide it. They trace the pipeline. Despite rhetoric about independence, the U.S. supply chain ran straight through gray channels hidden behind trade codes and invoice obfuscation. And now that Beijing's watching every gram, that workaround may have just expired. In one of the most bizarre revelations of the crackdown, Chinese customs unearthed a case where 320 tons of rare earth oxides were shipped to the United States, disguised as cosmetic ingredients, with Samsung allegedly at the center. According to investigative data leaked to Caixin Global, these shipments were falsely labeled as recycled materials to avoid scrutiny. Meanwhile, Samsung's S25 smartphone advertised eco-friendly recycled rare earths, though over 80% of the materials reportedly originated from gray market flows across the Sino-Mongolian border. At $38,000 per ton, the disguised shipment was worth over $12.1 million, enough to supply critical components for hundreds of advanced missiles or jet propulsion systems. While no formal charges were announced, China's Ministry of Commerce publicly warned multiple Korean firms in April about circumventing export rules. The warning was not subtle, it was strategic. Disguised re-exportation will trigger sanctions, the ministry stated. So if makeup boxes were hiding magnets, what else has slipped past undetected? This supply chain was built on a lie. The foundation of America's rare earth strategy was a myth that third countries could be a firewall against Chinese leverage. But that firewall turned out to be a revolving door. As Reuters confirmed, over 90% of all rare earth ores, even from countries like Australia and Myanmar, are still refined in Chinese facilities. Even when the ore isn't Chinese, the tech is. The United States spent billions developing rare earth processing plants in Texas and California. But as of Q2 2025, no domestic facility produces high-purity neodymium or dysprosium at commercial scale without Chinese input, according to the National Defense Industrial Association. Meanwhile, China's new traceability platform launched in April mandates that all rare earth exports log product flows in real time, making rerouting via middlemen exponentially riskier. This isn't just enforcement, it's a firewall backed by digital surveillance. So the next move isn't logistical, it's existential. Without China's refining tech, can the West produce what it needs at all? The United Kingdom has publicly criticized China's slow export approvals, but a deeper dive into the data shows a pattern that's hard to explain away. In Q1 2025, the United Kingdom imported 40% more rare earth magnets from China than the same period in 2024, according to customs records analyzed by Financial Times. But British industrial demand only grew by 15%, raising questions about where the rest of the material went. Defense analysts at Chatham House suggest that much of the surplus is likely re-exported to United States defense contractors, especially those linked to the F-35 program, which can consume 417 kilograms of rare earths per jet. British firms have denied any wrongdoing, but Beijing's response was preemptive. On May 14th, it approved 3 new exporters, each subject to mandatory declarations about end use and buyer identity. This isn't just bureaucracy, one Chinese official told South China Morning Post. It's counterintelligence. And with Washington desperate to fill orders for next-generation weapons, how long before London's pipeline faces a public audit? If China fully cuts rare earth exports to the United States, the Pentagon estimates most weapons production lines could grind to a halt within 90 days, according to internal Department of Defense simulations reported by Reuters. The F-35 stealth jet, already facing production bottlenecks, requires 417 kilograms of rare earth elements per unit. These include yttrium for radar-absorbing coatings and gadolinium for engine blades that can withstand 1,500 degrees Celsius in sustained supersonic flight. Without them, the jet's $80 million airframe becomes functionally obsolete. The Navy faces a similar breakdown. A single Virginia-class nuclear submarine consumes 4.2 metric tons of rare earths. With erbium, critical to sonar systems, and neodymium magnets enabling quiet propulsion. These are not accessories. They're operational lifelines. The Wall Street Journal noted that, as of May 2025, over 87% of the rare earths used in U.S. defense applications trace back to Chinese refining, despite years of diversification attempts. But if these systems fall silent, how long can Washington maintain deterrence before silence becomes vulnerability? Faced with China's supply chokehold, the Trump administration revived an old plan with new urgency: deep-sea rare earth mining. The target ocean beds up to 5,500 meters deep, with costs that rival lunar exploration. A 2024 GAO report found U.S. seabed mining technology lags China's by 20 years, and even the most optimistic feasibility studies from the U.S. Geological Survey projected a minimum $250 billion investment and a 10-year ramp-up, assuming environmental litigation doesn't delay development further. Meanwhile, alternatives have repeatedly collapsed. Ukraine's 5 million ton rare earth deposit lies 80% inside Russian-controlled zones, while Greenland's radioactive contamination adds $300 per ton in waste remediation, per a 2025 Bloomberg investigation. Even Australia's mineral sands proved unusable. Once shipped to the U.S., they still require China's patented refining processes. Trump's 2025 task force quietly admitted in April that no known source of supply is scalable without Chinese technology. So if every escape hatch leads back to Beijing, what exactly is Plan B? Beijing's latest move wasn't just another restriction. It was digital containment. In April 2025, China rolled out a national rare earth traceability platform, requiring all exporters, refiners, and intermediaries to register real-time data on every shipment down to the gram. According to China Daily and Kexen, the platform logs mine origin, export classification, end-user destination, and corporate disclosure of application, effectively criminalizing gray market laundering via third countries. It's a full-spectrum response to schemes like South Korea's alleged cosmetic cover exports and the UK's unexplained magnet surplus. Avoiding the illegal flow of strategic minerals has become an urgent and important task, said China's Ministry of Commerce on May 9th. The system is modeled after blockchain-like trace logs and now includes gallium, germanium, antimony tungsten, and 7 rare earth categories, with over $13 billion in unauthorized mineral flows suspected in 2024 alone, according to China's General Administration of Customs. Enforcement has shifted from ports to databases. And if there's no more place to hide, can the West still pretend there's another door left open? With U.S.-China trade talks set in Switzerland this week, rare earths are no longer just a bargaining chip. They're the leverage point. After President Trump's April tariffs on over 180 countries, including a 34% rate on Chinese imports, Beijing responded with pinpoint retaliation. Full-spectrum restrictions on rare earths used in missile systems, jet propulsion, and next-generation semiconductors. Bloomberg reports that the U.S. currently imports 68% of its rare earth metals directly from China, while another 24% come indirectly through partners like South Korea and the UK, many of which are now under investigation. In May, Chinese authorities warned that strategic resources cannot be used to subsidize hostile defense ecosystems, according to a leaked memo cited by the Financial Times. The U.S., despite building new processing plants in Texas and California, remains years away from scaling. The defense sector is exposed to a single point of failure, said Morgan Stanley analyst Derek Lee in a May 12th report. And that point remains China. So if Washington wants a trade deal, how much military capability is it willing to give up for it? Beijing didn't just flip the switch. They installed the circuit breaker. Now the question is, will they pull the master plug on chip making next? This isn't about tariffs anymore. It's about leverage disguised as logistics. A few years ago, rare earths were just a line item in obscure mining contracts. Today, they're the fuse to a global standoff. And Beijing holds the match. From submarines that can't dive to fighter jets grounded without stealth coatings, the future of U.S. defense manufacturing may come down to a supply chain controlled by its strategic rival. Traceability systems, trade restrictions, digital audits. This isn't economic warfare, it's industrial containment. But here's what's next. If China now controls the material inputs of modern warfare, what happens when it targets the manufacturing tools themselves? Because some insiders say the next move won't be minerals. It'll be machines. We're glad you're enjoying this video. Please like and subscribe. Check out another video that is now on your screen.